Whispers of sorcery began when the palace's foundations appeared overnight. One frostbitten day, the broad plain 5 miles from Mull contained nothing but grass and muddy puddles. The next, solid walls took shape, as if they'd sprouted from the ground like daffodils at the first hint of spring. Looking at the completed building now, surrounded by mature, formal gardens, I could see why those whispers had grown louder. Despite the distance between the palace and the clearing on Lookout Hill where I stood, I could tell it was enormous. It must be 4 times as long as the street on which I lived, and it was certainly higher than the temple in the centre of Mull. According to my father, it was even bigger than the main temple in Tilting, Glancia's capital city, where the last king had ruled from a crumbling old castle. That structure had taken 3 years to build. The palace had taken less than 3 months. 3 months in which not a single builder had been seen coming or going. No locals had been tasked with the labour, and according to the travellers and traders who now filled Mull's taverns to bursting, they hadn't come from elsewhere in Glancia or any of the neighbouring kingdoms either. It was as if they'd been conjured from the air and returned there after the palace's completion. Magic. Even I, a practical woman who believed in what she could see, hear and touch, couldn't explain the sudden appearance of the palace. It wasn't simply the speed of its erection, but also the secrecy that shrouded it. Only a handful of delivery carts from the village and nearby farms had been to the palace to supply its kitchens, and guards hadn't allowed them beyond the gate. Palace servants unloaded the goods and retreated inside. They did not engage in conversation, they did not make eye contact, and they certainly didn't come to the village on their days off. Except for that one time, a maid wandered into Mull early one morning, asking passers-by if they knew her. When no one could offer answers, she fell to her knees and sobbed until 4 palace guards collected her. She went with them meekly enough, but her haunted eyes stayed with me. Not just hers, but theirs too. With a last look at the dazzling building, glinting in the late spring sunshine like a jewel, I picked up my battered old pack, as well as the new one given to me by the patient I'd called on, and turned to go. The thundering of hooves along the forest path warned me to remain in the clearing. By the sound of it, more than one rider was heading my way, and they were travelling fast. To move onto the path would be folly, so I waited until the reckless youths passed. No doubt it was Lord Deerhorn's sons, come to see the palace for themselves. Lookout Hill afforded the best view, after all. Either that, or they'd decided to hunt here. They were supposed to keep to their own estate, but they were arrogant enough to shoot their arrows on common land whenever they pleased. I'd learned a long time ago to stay away from the Deerhorn lordlings, but I didn't want them to think I was an animal worth hunting. I made myself visible in the middle of the clearing, facing the area of dense forest where the path briefly emerged before disappearing again on the other side. They couldn't mistake me for a fox or a rabbit. Then again, they were as thick as the tree foliage in this part of the forest, and fond of losing their arrows. The dull thud-thud of the hooves came closer, then the first rider burst into the clearing. His head jerked toward me, and I caught a glimpse of a short dark beard, but little else, thanks to the hooded cloak he wore. He disappeared into the forest again, his horse's stride not even slowing. A few moments later, the forest spat out another rider, this one wearing black leather with gold trim at the shoulder of his doublet and long black boots. He sat tall in the saddle, looking comfortable despite his horse's ferocious pace. I got a good look at his face as he slowed to study me in return. Short, dark hair framed hard planes and a cleanly shaven jaw. It was his eyes that commanded attention, however. They were the blue of the shallows in Half Moon Cove on a sunny day. Those eyes made a quick assessment of me before focusing forward again. "Question her," he barked, before urging his horse into the forest ahead. He'd hardly disappeared when another rider emerged. He wore a crimson doublet with gold braiding. Crimson and gold. Palace uniforms. I clutched my bag to my chest. The rider stopped and swore. He looked at me, swore again, and stared into the forest after the other riders.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.